And now, viewers, shifting our focus. The Strait of Hormuz may be inching towards reopening, but the waters remain anything but calm. Iran and Oman have restarted talks on a temporary navigation corridor through the strategic waterway, as Tehran faces mounting economic pressure from Washington. The two countries have discussed creating a joint temporary navigational corridor through the Strait of Hormuz and clearing the route for mines. Now, this is a crucial development. Before the war, Hormuz handled around one-fifth of the global oil and LNG shipments. But most commercial shipping has remained shut since the conflict began in February. And despite claims that the strait has been demined, the threat at sea has not disappeared at all. An oil tanker was reportedly struck by an unidentified projectile near Oman's coast on Tuesday, leaving the vessel disabled. So while Tehran and Muscat are talking about a safe passage, the danger zone remains active. The corridor talks comes as the Donald Trump administration has turned up the heat on Iran. Washington has threatened penalties against countries continuing to do business with Tehran, expanding the pressure on Iran's already battered economy. But the impact on global oil markets has so far been limited. Oil prices have fallen for a second straight day, with traders seemingly looking past the latest sanctions threat. Iran, meanwhile, has slammed the US pressure campaign as gross lawlessness and says that it expects several countries to resist Washington's sanctions push. And then comes a completely different flashpoint. Iranian state television broadcast a 3-minute video discussing an alleged plot to assassinate Donald Trump's youngest son, Barron Trump. The video claimed Barron was being monitored and alleged a $10 million bounty for his killing. The US Secret Service has confirmed that it is aware of the broadcast, and the claim has added another layer of tensions between Washington and Tehran. But there is also a sign that Washington believes that the immediate risk of escalation may have eased. The United States has begun sending personnel back to some diplomatic missions in West Asia and had earlier been evacuated or downsized during the Iran crisis. The move suggests that Washington sees a lower risk of an immediate escalation, although some missions will initially operate below the full capacity. The Strait of Hormuz remains the pressure point. Iran and Oman are trying to create a temporary passage, and Washington is tightening sanctions. Oil markets are refusing to panic, and US personnel are slowly returning to the region. But ships are still facing danger at sea, and diplomacy between Washington and Tehran remains stuck. The question now is simple. Can the Hormuz corridor reopen before the next spark turns the waterway into another flashpoint? And to discuss more on this, I am being joined by former Indian diplomat Jayant Dasgupta. Ambassador, thank you so much for taking out the time and joining me on the broadcast. Do you think that Iran and Oman's this proposed temporary navigation corridor will really pave the way for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, or is it going to be the threat to the commercial shipping which will remain serious as long as the war drags on?
I think this is a very welcome step on the part of both Oman and Iran.
Okay.
But as long as the US doesn't buy into it, it will remain infructuous and unimplementable. Because both the entry and the exit points of the corridor are in Iranian territorial waters. So the Americans are unlikely to agree to this. Of course, the positive features of this agreement between Oman and Iran is that they have agreed to demine the waters so that passage of ships through this corridor will become safe if the US, of course, agrees to allow this passage to be used. The US is saying that the Strait of Hormuz is completely free. It has been demined. And in case the Iranians try to lay fresh mines, they will be attacked. So I think they are at loggerheads still, and the US has to be brought on board before this agreement can be implemented properly, and international shipping can breathe a sigh of relief and continue its operations from before the war.
Do you think that this new economic D-Day campaign of US is going to pressurize Iran and is going to tilt the war to the US's side? Because Donald Trump has said that because they are sending back the troops, so they are held sure about that this economic pressures, these sanctions are going to put the pressure on Iran that the Donald Trump was hoping from day one in this war.
Iranians are under tremendous pressure. There is no doubt about that. President Pezeshkian has also mentioned that, and he says that there should be a negotiated settlement as quickly as possible.
Right.
But having said that, the president doesn't seem to hold all the cards close to his chest, because the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and the other centers of power, they also wield a lot of power in terms of deciding what has to be done. And the Iranian military top brass is deeply skeptical of both the US and Israel, and they think that this agreement will lead to their emasculation and their defenestration, and they will be defenseless in the face of further attacks by the US and Israel, which would follow once they have ensured that the Iranians have removed their missiles. They have given an undertaking that they will not build further missiles and put a stop to their nuclear program. So I think there is a huge gap in the trust between both sides, and that has to be bridged somehow through mediation. And that is why the role of Oman and Qatar are extremely important in this context.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Das Gupta, for taking out the time and joining me on the broadcast. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.